Grandpa's legacy. My name is Daniel Carter. I grew up in a small town in Texas with my parents, my older sister Emily, and my grandparents. My grandfather, Thomas Carter, was a self-made businessman. He started with a small repair shop in the 1970s. Over 4 decades, that little repair shop became Carter Industrial Supply, a company worth tens of millions of dollars. But Grandpa never acted rich. He drove an old pickup truck. He wore the same leather boots for years. And every Sunday, he ate breakfast at the same little diner. To him, money was never the goal. Family was. My grandmother, Margaret, was his partner through everything. She kept the books when the company was small. She answered phones. She raised their children. And she was the only person Grandpa trusted completely. They had 2 sons. My father, Michael. And my uncle, Robert. My father chose a different life. He became a teacher. Robert joined the family business. At first, everyone thought Robert would eventually take over. But Grandpa never gave him complete control. I didn't understand why until I was older. One afternoon, when I was about 22, Grandpa and I were sitting in his workshop. He was repairing an old radio. Suddenly, he said, "Daniel, promise me something." "What?" "If anything ever happens to me, don't trust anyone just because they're family." I laughed. I thought he was joking. But he wasn't. He looked directly at me. Especially Robert. That was the first time I realized Grandpa was afraid of his own son. A few years later, Grandpa's health began to decline. He was still mentally sharp, but physically weaker. My grandmother had already passed away, so I started visiting more often. I helped around the house. I drove him to appointments. And every Saturday, we'd sit in his workshop and talk. One evening, Grandpa handed me an old brass key. "Keep this." I looked at it. "What does it open?" He smiled. "You'll know when you need it." I asked him about Robert. Grandpa became quiet. Then he said, "Your uncle has made mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind that can destroy a family." I wanted to ask more. But he changed the subject. 2 months later, Grandpa died peacefully in his sleep. At the funeral, Robert stood beside the coffin crying. He told everyone, "Dad was my best friend." It sounded sincere. But I remembered Grandpa's warning. And I couldn't stop thinking about that brass key. A week after the funeral, our family met with Grandpa's attorney. His estate was complicated. The ranch. The company. Several investment accounts. Property across Texas. And millions of dollars in assets. We sat around a large conference table. Robert looked completely confident. The attorney opened a folder. "Thomas Carter's final will leaves the majority of his estate to." He paused. Then looked up. "Robert Carter." Everyone froze. My father stared at his brother. Robert lowered his head as if he were overwhelmed with emotion. I couldn't speak. The attorney continued. "The family business will be transferred to Robert immediately." Robert looked at me. "I'll take care of everything, Daniel." Those words made my stomach turn. Because Grandpa had once told me, never let Robert control everything. Yet somehow, he had. Over the next few weeks, things changed quickly. The company changed ownership. The ranch was put up for sale. Several investment accounts were closed. When my father questioned Robert, he said, "Dad's wishes were clear." But then something strange happened. My father received a letter. It was from Grandpa. The letter said, "If Robert controls the estate, something has gone terribly wrong." There was no signature. No explanation. Just that sentence. My father showed it to me. And suddenly, I remembered the brass key. I went back to Grandpa's house. I searched his workshop. Nothing. His office. Nothing. His bedroom. Nothing. Then I remembered something. When I was a child, Grandpa had told me. Every important thing in this house has a story. I walked through the basement. There were old boxes everywhere. Christmas decorations. Tax records. Tools. Photographs. Then I saw an old metal cabinet. It was locked. I pulled out the brass key. It fit. Inside were dozens of folders. Most were ordinary business documents. But one folder was different. It had my grandfather's handwriting on it. 3 words. If Robert wins. My hand started shaking. I opened it. Inside were copies of financial statements. Property records. Bank transfers. And something that made my heart stop. A document showed that $8.7 million had been transferred from a family investment account into a company controlled by Robert. The transfer had happened nearly a year before Grandpa died. There were several more. $2.1 million. $4.3 million. $900,000. Millions had disappeared before the will was ever read. But there was more. I found a handwritten note from Grandpa. It said, "Robert believes I don't know." Underneath it, "I know everything." I called my father immediately. He came to the house. We spread the documents across the kitchen table. My father couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then he noticed a small envelope. It was labeled, "For Daniel." Inside was a flash drive. There was only one video. My grandfather appeared on the screen. He looked tired. But completely alert. He spoke directly into the camera. "Daniel, if you're watching this, I'm probably gone." He took a long breath. "I need you to understand something. Robert has been moving money from the company. He believes I'm too old to notice. But I have been documenting everything." My grandfather explained that he had discovered Robert creating fake invoices and transferring company money into accounts connected to him. Then Grandpa said something that shocked us. "I changed my will 3 weeks ago." My father looked at me. The will we'd seen wasn't the final will. Grandpa continued. "The original document has been replaced." He paused. "I don't know how far Robert has gone. But if he presents a will leaving everything to himself, don't believe it." Then he gave one final instruction. "Look behind the old clock in my office." The video ended. We rushed upstairs. There was an antique grandfather clock in the corner. We moved it away from the wall. Behind it was a small hidden compartment. Inside was another envelope. And this time, it contained the original signed will. The real will divided the estate differently. The company was placed into a family trust. The ranch was protected. Employees received bonuses. Charities received donations. And the remaining estate was divided between my father and me. Robert received almost nothing. We took everything to the family attorney. The attorney went silent as he reviewed the documents. Then he said, "This changes everything." He contacted investigators. Financial records were subpoenaed. Bank accounts were examined. Company records were audited. And the evidence kept growing. Fake invoices. Unauthorized transfers. Forged signatures. Shell companies. Robert had been stealing from the family business for years. But he had made one mistake. He underestimated Grandpa. And he underestimated me. When Robert discovered what we'd found, he came to my house. He was furious. "You have no idea what you're doing." I said. "I know exactly what I'm doing." He stepped closer. "You're destroying this family." I looked at him. "No, Robert. You did that." For the first time. He had nothing to say. The case eventually reached court. Robert's lawyers argued that the original will was fake. They claimed Grandpa had been confused near the end of his life. But then the attorney played Grandpa's video. The courtroom became completely silent. My grandfather's voice filled the room. "Robert has been stealing from the company." Then came the financial records. Bank transfers. Emails. Fake invoices. And finally, the handwriting expert confirmed the signature on the original will was authentic. The judge looked at Robert. "Do you have an explanation for these transfers?" Robert remained silent. His own attorney couldn't defend him. The judge ruled that the original will was valid. The fraudulent transfers were recovered where possible. The family business was returned to the trust. And Robert was held accountable for the financial crimes. The fortune Grandpa had spent his entire life building was finally protected. Months later, I returned to Grandpa's workshop. Everything was quiet. His tools were still hanging on the wall. His old radio sat on the workbench. And the brass key was still in my pocket. I finally understood what Grandpa meant when he gave it to me. The key wasn't really the important part. It was the lesson. Trust isn't about someone's last name. It's about their character. My uncle thought he could steal our family's fortune. He thought Grandpa was too old to fight back. He thought nobody would ever discover the truth. But Grandpa had prepared for everything. And when the time came, the evidence spoke for him. I kept the original will in a safe. Not because it was worth millions. But because it reminded me of the man who created everything from nothing. My grandfather once told me, "Money can build a house. But only honesty can build a family." And after everything we had been through, I finally understood what he meant. The fortune wasn't Grandpa's greatest legacy. The truth was. If you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe, and comment below. Would you have exposed your own family member if you discovered they stole the family fortune?